Welcome to Sips and Stories. I'm Maria and today I'm here with,
Lewis, and I study philosophy.
and today we're going to get the lowdown of uni life. So let's get straight into it. So we're going to take it all back when you first joined university. Do you think university life, since you've experienced since during your third year, do you think university life is very romanticised online?
Not from where I'm standing. I see a lot of clips of like what's the worst situation in a student accommodation,
Oh yeah,
like things in fridges, bins, and having lived through it myself, that's
Yeah.
definitely the case.
Yeah.
So it's maybe romanticized in some sense
yeah,
because I think in two ways, like the early morning routines and the uber productive like
Yeah.
influencers,
yeah,
and then like the kind of clubbing side of it too. But on par, no, because I think there's also a lot of emphasis put on what it's like to live in a student accommodation,
yeah,
what it's like to be hungover and attend 9 a.m. lectures and
yeah. Oh
all the
God.
other stuff. Yeah, I think if you look, at least from what I've seen online, I think you get a fairly honest picture of uni life.
When I see social media clips, especially on TikTok, you see all these aesthetic girlies, waking up at 5 a.m., getting their morning workout in, and then somehow having energy to get ready for the day, attending lectures, studying this amount of time, and still having a social life. So, have you ever found difficulties between managing your social life and your academic life?
Not personally,
No?
no. I can definitely see how people would, but
Yeah.
uh, no, not really. I think it depends on how many. Some people come to uni and they really instantiate themselves
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
campus, and like I know people who could walk up and down and they'll constantly bump into people that they know through
Yeah.
people and people. I think
Yeah.
I've definitely put myself out there, but not to that degree. So I don't
Mm,
constantly have people messaging me. The kind
mm,
of default is that I can stay in the evening, and
yeah.
between lectures, it's up to me to get myself lunch and go home when I want. So
Yeah. Nice. Um, just to like make it extremely honest, are you happy with who you're becoming?
I think maybe happiness is the wrong. I'm just content with who I'm becoming.
Nice.
But yeah, it's a work in progress.
It's a work in
Becoming
progress.
the type of person that you want to be.
And what type of person do you want to be in terms of, let's say, academia?
Someone that's a conscientious writer. I think that's the main thing in philosophy, which I don't always succeed at. But the ideal is to have the final draft of the essay done a week before,
Yes.
and then you can leave it, like forget about it for a day. Because
Yeah.
when you look at the same piece of text for so long,
Yeah.
it starts to lose meaning.
Yeah.
So if you can do things ahead of time, and
Yeah.
then that's the kind of student that I want to be. Is that a
Yeah.
conscious, an industrious one?
Yeah. And just a quick one to break it up: essays or group projects?
Essays.
Why?
That's all I write.
You don't do group projects?
No, not in philosophy.
Really? Oh
Yeah, really.
wow. I
It's
never
all
heard.
essays, and then even when it's exams, it's still essays because you've got 6 hours to do two
So you've
thousand
never
words.
done a group project in your course?
Not on my course. I did a foundation year in a different topic, and when I did that, I had to do group projects.
Oh
But no, philosophy
wow.
students never meet as a group and have to. I did in the foundation, but not in the philosophy, not in the last 3
Gosh.
years of
Oh
the.
wow, you're very lucky though. I would say that.
Yeah, I like the framework of philosophy assessments. It's good.
So let's talk about the hidden stuff which no one really talks about. So, um, do you ever just want to stop and take a break, but do you ever feel guilty about it?
I do, and I know I don't feel guilty about it. I'm pretty good
I
at.
like your mindset.
I'm pretty good at. It kind of makes me laugh when people talk. Not when people talk, but when people say, like, make sure you don't burn out,
Mm.
because I kind of have a constant buffer to stop myself from.
Oh, okay. So maybe those who are experiencing, who's watching this, experiencing, feeling guilty about, stopping and taking a break, what advice would you give them?
I'd say there's probably some way in which you could be using your time more effectively.
Mm.
Never let your degree or your academics. I mean, sometimes it will be and some weeks will be a grind,
Yeah.
so that and you'll look back on them when you graduate with the mark that you want,
Hmm.
and you're thinking, I'm glad I did that. But you should never week after week after week
Hmm.
not be going to the gym or not be reading for leisure or playing like sports recreation. Like you should always be able to fit it in there,
Yeah.
and just know that even like really high performance
Mm.
like college
mm.
athletes exist. So like,
Yeah,
there's people that can fit it in.
yeah.
Um, so I think if you want to, you'll make it work. But yeah, just don't. There's no point in feeling guilty about unless you really should be doing work.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Nice. So do you feel more driven by ambition or by the fear of falling behind slash failure?
I think ambition. I don't think so much about I don't think in terms of kind of failure or falling behind. I'm just trying to do well, based on my own results. You know, compare yourself to who you were last week, I guess.
Nice. How many times have you thought about quitting or trying an alternative path?
Well, I did a foundation year in
Yeah, yeah.
biosciences,
Ah,
which I did quit.
yeah. Oh, so
In order,
what was the reason behind you quitting?
I wasn't enjoying the year enough to think, right, I've got 3 years beyond this of
Yeah,
more of this stuff.
yeah.
So I thought, right, I need to, whilst I can,
Mm,
think about my options.
yeah.
So I did an internal transfer to philosophy.
Mm. So let's move on to my favorite section. Adulting is a scam. What's the hardest part about applying for internships or part-time jobs whilst studying?
I'd say is trying to come up with like a CV that looks good when you're a student and you've not done. It's sometimes difficult to sell yourself if
Yeah,
you've. But I think that's really universal. The
yeah,
idea that you need to work in order to have experience,
yeah,
in order to look good, so that you can
yeah,
go
yeah, yeah,
work. So,
yeah,
so you've got at some point you've got to start. But I was like, just cast your net out as wide as you can. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
did.
Perfect. And what's something you've recently learned about careers or adult life that changed your whole outlook?
I don't know about one thing, but the kind of the sentiment that I get is that it's you won't graduate and then have to immediately like just like get scooped up by some corporation or
Yeah,
go work somewhere. You can do a master's and then a PhD if you like. I mean, learning for the sake of learning,
yeah,
I don't think is ever a bad thing.
yeah,
Um, and just the different opportunities. You know, you see it in careers fairs. You don't have this. Not like you do a master's and you do a certain course in this and you train to work in a software
yeah.
company. So you work in a software or you do this. I mean,
Mm.
people can retrain. My mature students exist. So I'd say don't don't worry too much about it.
Yeah. Nice. And now we're going to get into the deep end. So it's all about growth and identity. So, what's a version of your future that feels very exciting, but a little too big for you right now?
I'm not sure. There's not much that I couldn't see myself doing. I understand it'll take growth and it'll take time, but I would say don't ever think that any future position you could be in would be too much for you. I mean, if that position exists, you've seen other people do it. There's no reason why you can't do it.
Yeah.
But I suppose just the idea of working, because I've never worked like completely full time
Yeah.
for more than a few months. I mean, I worked in my gap year a
Yeah.
bit, so yeah, maybe the idea of working a specialist job rather than just being a bartender or a barista
Mm.
or working hospitality. The idea
Yeah.
of working in a job where people depend on you and you have
Mm.
to answer to people and there's like chains of command. I suppose that seems a little foreign to me still, but
So, do you think that getting a glimpse into the corporate life via internships might be a good way to settle them kind of anxieties about the future?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it helps to see more and more people do those things and you realize they're not that different from you.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So, do you ever think about how one day this version of life, the chaos, the people, the 3 a.m. chats won't exist anymore?
Yeah, I'll still miss living in a shared house and cycling to and from
Yeah.
lectures
Yeah.
and yeah, it's still something that I sentimentalize, but
It's life.
yeah.
Um, and finally, what's one thing you now know that first years desperately need to hear? Anything about uni life?
It's kind of a marathon, not a sprint, I guess. I don't know, never think that it all is made or will make or break on one. There'll be graduate programs you apply for that you hear back from and you don't get. There will be like modules that don't go so well. But I think the key is that just across kind of all areas, things will like even themselves out. So like it's sometimes a case of just like continuing to walk forward, even if one thing is not going so well. Sometimes it
Nice.
fixes itself.
Nice. Well, that's very good advice. And then now we're going to end on a positive note. So, which is, what's something about your future that genuinely excites you right now?
Well, I'm thinking of going into teaching. I'm
Oh,
thinking of doing a PGCE as my postgrad. So the idea of working with kids and the idea of teaching really excites
oh,
me.
nice. Like what, like primary school, high school,
Yeah, I'm
college?
still thinking, but I've got some open days to attend and some
Nice.
things to apply for. But if it was secondary school, religious studies,
I don't know if you want to keep this in the edit, but he gives me like very RE teacher vibes, like high school vibes. So, yeah.
thank you.
If you could tell your younger self one reassuring thing about uni, what would you say?
Um,
Imagine your younger self is there right now.
be better with essay deadlines.
Mm,
Maybe when you receive essay deadlines, write them in your diaries a week earlier than they actually are,
yes.
and really try and treat that like that is the deadline.
Yes.
Say, don't have that internal sense of, oh, but it's not. I can leave it a week later. Write down a date 7 to 10 days before, and have whatever it is you're doing done by that point.
Mhm.
And then, like I say, because I don't know if it's a case with other subjects, but if you look at a philosophy essay,
Mm.
you can start to lose sense of what it is that you're even arguing for, and the concepts like can lose all meaning. So have it done ahead of time, leave it for a bit, and then in the few days before, you should just be tweaking bits here and there
Mm.
and making sure that all the referencing is correct with some citations, and that would be practical advice. Is like you control it. There's no reason to ever leave anything last minute.
I feel like you've got your time management and organizational skills like to the T, by the way. That's very good from a university student as well. So
Yeah, it's getting there. It's
I think you
getting.
should give yourself more credit. Cheers to figuring it out slowly.
Cheers.